And I'm going to just read the story, but as I read the story, I'm going to kind of stop, and we're going to kind of talk about it as we read, okay? So here's what's going on. John chapter 8. Jesus went on to the Mount of Olives, and at dawn he appeared again in the temple courts where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach. So let's get our scene, right? Jesus in the courtyard of the temple, and he's teaching the people. How awesome, right? Jesus is sitting there teaching. And then the teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery, and they made her stand before the group. So they drag this woman in. I don't know where the guy is. But they find this woman, and she's caught in adultery. Now, let's think about that real quick, because I think sometimes we read this story, and we put all sort of, oh, that woman who was caught in adultery, ooh, shame on her. Well, there was obviously a man there too, right? There was a boy there too. But how do you catch someone in adultery, moms? What do you think? You probably know it's happening. So there's a lot of people who read the Bible, scholars and teachers who tell us that this was kind of a setup. And the woman did a bad thing, and the man who was involved did too. But these teachers of the law, these Pharisees, how did they just magically know that a woman was in the moment of being caught in adultery? And so, it was all kind of a test for Jesus. Because according to the law, something was supposed to happen to this woman. And let's read. So they made this woman stand before the group. We talk about embarrassing. Jesus, in the courtyard of the temple, she gets dragged in and put in front of him. And they say to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women." Actually, what they would usually do was push them off about a 6-foot cliff and then throw rocks at them until they died. Now, what do you say? They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. So they're trying to trap Jesus. They're trying to get him to say, because he was kind of a grace-filled guy, oh, we shouldn't stone her, because that would be showing that he's against the law, right? Jesus is good. Jesus bends down and starts to write on the ground with his finger. And they kept questioning him. And so he straightened up and he said to them, "If any one of you is without sin, let him be the first one to throw the stone." And then he went back to writing on the ground. Well, what's great about this is that the Pharisees were trying to trap Jesus. But he doesn't say, don't stone the woman, does he? He doesn't say, oh, don't stone her. What does he say? Whoever is innocent, right? Go ahead and stone her. Whoever's innocent, you get to throw the first rock. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us what Jesus was writing in that sand. People have all kinds of ideas. What could he have been writing in that sand? Oh, maybe the 10 Commandments? Yeah, maybe. Sinful. Maybe the name of the person who set up the whole thing. I've always kind of liked that one. Gee, Jehoshaphat, or whoever he was. And so Jesus just writes, and then this is interesting. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left. See, as you get older in life, you start to recognize your guilt and your sinfulness sometimes more clearly than when you're young. So my guess is when Jesus said, whoever's sinless, go ahead and throw the first rock, the older guys went, And then the younger ones. And they all left until you're all alone. This impure woman with Jesus. Just a little bit ago, you did an activity with clay and you mashed all the clay up. And we realized that it's physically impossible to separate the clay, right? To put it back the way it was. And that's the truth. For you and for me, it's impossible, but nothing is impossible with God. So he looks at this woman who had been dragged into church and called an adulterous woman. And he says, "Woman, where'd everybody go? But, no one's condemned you. Where'd they go? Has no one condemned you?" And she says, "No one, sir." And he says, "Then neither do I condemn you. Go, leave your life of sin." Don't hear that wrong. Jesus definitely passes judgment. He says, don't sin anymore. You're a sinner, but I don't condemn you. He changes her, like the woman at the well. He intersects her life and he changes her. Purity, innocence, It's really innocent to be pure when you're Sydney's age or when you haven't really had too many experiences like the woman caught in adultery. But as we look at our world, we just know that's kind of not life. So how do we do this? Well, here's the key. It starts by understanding that purity is not just about your body. Purity is about your heart, your soul, and your body. Purity is about your heart, your soul, and your body. Girls, I want you to say that. Purity is about my heart, my soul, and my body. Would you say that? Purity is about my heart, my soul, and my body. Often we take that conversation about purity and we just focus on the physical part because that's really, like I said yesterday, physical things are the easy things. They're very evident. You can't help but notice them. If you've had sex, you kind of know you did, okay? So we focus our conversations about purity on dress and our bodies and the choices with our bodies, and that makes a lot of sense. But purity is about right. It's about all of it. Purity starts with a clean heart and a right spirit. If you're writing things down at this event, write that down. Purity starts with a clean heart and a right spirit. So what that means is that physical purity becomes possible when you've got your mind in the right place and when you know your boundaries. Because here's the thing. It's all about having your head in the right place. Because it's really tough to make the right choices with your body when your mind is like totally in the wrong place. And it's really tough when you're like crushing on that boy and you want to just, hold hands. It's hard to make the right choices when the lyrics of the songs that are out there tell us that my head should be like this. Oh, yeah. I don't know how it gets any better than this. You take my hand and drag me. That sounds fun. Head first, fearless. And I don't know why, but with you I dance in a storm in my best dress fearless, right? I know the song. First of all, no girl in her right mind would dance in the storm in her best dress. But anyway, the point being, our heads get all, it's fun to crush on that boy. And when your mind is in the wrong place, you start to make really stupid choices with your body. When you start to jump head first fearless into something, you make the wrong choices. And so purity is about your heart and your soul and your body. And getting your mind in the right place helps you make the right choices with your body. So moms, when you're starting those conversations with your girls, start by talking about their hearts and their minds. Start by talking about those fairy tale stories when they were girls and helping them understand where they need to get their head in the right place. When they get their mind in the right place, then the body can follow. That's a tough one. Sex is a really incredible part of God's design for your life should you be married someday. We talked a lot about that today. Sex being this incredible gift from God. And girls, you're going, okay, I'm like 10, 11, okay. But moms, you can help your girls understand this truth better than a speaker on a video or on stage could ever do. Sex is an incredible gift, and should you be married someday, it's going to be a big part of your happily ever after. It really is. But marriage is a long time away, and that can make it kind of easy to ignore the whole, sex is important in marriage, because it's just way out there. But the truth is that it will play a big part in your happily ever after. Sexual purity will play a big part in your happily ever after. But so will purity of your heart. See, when you get married someday, if you've given your body away, that's going to create issues like we were saying up here in the panel. But if you've given your heart away, if you've left a little piece of yourself like this clay, that's going to cause problems too. So moms, as you work with your girls, help them not just to guard their bodies, but their hearts and their minds. Remember that boy I told you about yesterday, the freshman year high school boy? And then I mentioned earlier, he's who I dated for 3 years. Well, we went camping my junior year with my parents, family vacation. We went camping all together. And on the way up to the camping trip, we were riding along in my parents' super cool minivan, and we were writing each other notes. Not horrible, horrible notes, but notes that we probably should have been writing to each other if mom or dad had seen them. Mortifying. Well, guess who found the notes? Mom and dad. So we get to the camping trip. And my mother says, Gretchen Marie, I need to talk to you. Okay. And my dad says to the boy, I'd like to talk to you. Dun, 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 So we go for a walk, and Mom explains that they found these notes, and we proceed to have this conversation about why that really wasn't the kind of thing that I should be writing. I was so embarrassed. I felt so ashamed. I felt so stupid. And then I was really mortified because my dad was talking to the boy. Well, then my mom and dad sat down with both of us. Gets better, right? And we talked some more. And they help us to understand this idea of giving your heart away. And they help us to understand that we're pretty young. And then my dad tells a story, or actually a truth, about he and my mom. And he says, Gretchen Marie, I want you to know. And by this point, the boy had gone away. That every day, your mom and I think about that boy someday. Who that boy will be, should God choose to gift you with this gift of marriage someday. I have a little sister, my dad. I think about that for you, and I think about that for your sister Katie. And I want you to know that I and your mother, we're already praying for that boy. And we think you should too. Would you want that boy writing those notes to some girl somewhere? Well, it turns out that boy's name is Leon, and he was growing up way out in Colorado. I didn't know him at all, right? Wouldn't meet him for another 10 years. But I remember thinking, well, no, I wouldn't want my boy writing notes to some girl. Because even then, I kind of knew I wasn't going to marry Matt. I mean, I was only 16 years old. So my dad helped me think about that boy. Girls, you're young, but out there, should God have it in his design that you be married, that boy is growing up somewhere. Well, that's weird to think about. What kind of a boy do you want him to be? Are you praying for him? Do you want God to protect his heart and his mind and his body for you? Raise your hand. Yeah? I would think so. And moms, somewhere out there, your son-in-law, right? If that's in the plans, if that's in God's design. What kind of boy do you want him to be, Mom? Do you want him growing in the Lord? Gosh, don't you hope his folks are taking him to church? Don't you hope that he's making good choices? Don't you hope that he's learning to not look at the girls who are showing too much? Don't you hope that he's a man after God's own heart? That boy, and my dad told me, Gretchen Marie, I am already praying for that boy, and you should be too. And girls, that's the truth for you. Pray for that boy. For that Prince Charming who's got a lot of warts, because they all do. So we're going to take a little bit of talk time. And here's what I'd like you to talk about. I'd like you to be talking about what are some things that we moms and daughters can start praying for that future someday husband, for that boy. Go ahead and talk about this at your table group, in your small group. What are some things you can pray about for that boy? Let's take a few minutes to talk about that.